For character evidence, the main issue is, are you offering a piece of evidence about someone's past to prove that they acted the same way in the future or in the present? For example, 404A is about traits. Are you offering something that proves a witness is dishonest or violent back in the past, therefore, they were dishonest or violent now, in the present, or in the future? That's action in conformity therewith. That means the person is acting in conformity, meaning the same way, as they did in the past. They're acting the same way today that they did back at some time in the past. You can't offer evidence under 404A that someone is sneaky and not trustworthy, therefore, they're not trustworthy today under 404A. Now, we will learn some exceptions to that because there are exceptions if you're trying to impeach someone's trustworthiness, but we're not there yet. We're just understanding that under 404A and under 404B, you can't use past things to prove action in conformity therewith. Now, what's the difference between 404A and 404B? 404A is about general traits. Someone is an alcoholic, or someone is not trustworthy, or they're violent, or they're peaceful. Anything that's a general trait, no specifics. General, it's 404A. Now, specific crimes, wrongs, and acts is 404B. So, someone got in a fight in high school, someone robbed the school store in high school, someone um, stole money from their employer right out of the cash register. So these are specific examples of bad things. So you can't use general traits and you can't use specific examples. 404A, 404B, that's the difference. Now, why is there a difference? Why do they have two rules? Because there's different exceptions to both rules. That's why. So let's look at some of these exceptions. For 404A, you can offer pertinent traits in certain situations. So you can offer pertinent traits in a criminal trial if you're the defendant and you're offering your own trait. The only thing about that is, under 404A, is you can rebut a defendant's pertinent trait with evidence showing that they have a bad trait. So I'll give you an example. The defendant in a murder case introduces evidence that says, hey, I am a peaceful person, therefore I don't murder. So the prosecution can introduce evidence to rebut that pertinent trait that says, actually, you're not very peaceful, says 10 different witnesses that says you're the most violent person they ever knew. Now, the prosecution could not introduce this evidence saying they're a very violent person, talking bad about the defendant, unless the defendant brings it up first. That's what rebut means. And you can look at the different scenarios under A, B, and C, where there's three different exceptions for pertinent traits. It doesn't really come up that much, but it is something to be aware of, that there are these scenarios where you can offer pertinent traits, and it's usually the defendant offering the pertinent trait. Pertinent just means really relevant to the case. So in a murder case, violence is really relevant. It's pertinent to the murder case. That's not a very major exception. A really major exception, though, is 608A, a credibility attack. You can introduce a witness's credibility by showing that they have a bad reputation for telling the truth. You can have witnesses come and testify, hey, witness number one is not testifying the truth because I know that everyone in his neighborhood believes he's a liar. Or witness number one is not telling the truth because everyone in his family believes that he is super untrustworthy and they don't even talk to him anymore. That is a general reputation for untrustworthiness. And that's okay, believe it or not, if you're offering it just to impeach their truthfulness. You're not trying to show that there's action in conformity therewith. And even if you are, it's just to impeach truthfulness. And generally, in a trial, impeachment is okay. Now, keep in mind, you can't talk good about someone, meaning bolstering their character, until they've been attacked first. So, for example, if you have a witness, they can't say, witness number one is very trustworthy and very honorable and very peaceful and just a great person. They can't talk like that unless witness number one has already been attacked. So once the prosecution starts talking about how witness number one is not trustworthy, they're bad, they're violent, whatever the bad character trait is, you can come back and bolster the character with positive information. Now, under 404B, major exceptions are if you're offering a past bad act for another purpose. So, for example, in a murder case, someone is charged with murdering a victim at a bar. Now, if the defendant gets up there and says, I never go to bars, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do anything bad, I'm an absolute angel, then you could introduce, to impeach them, you could introduce statements saying that I go to bars if the defendant has admitted that. That's not to show action in conformity therewith, that's for impeachment. So that's another purpose. Another purpose would be to show that they have a motive for the murder. If you introduce evidence that shows that this defendant goes to bars and deals drugs, therefore someone at the bar could have owed him money and that could be a motive for a murder, you're not offering this evidence that he goes to bars and deals drugs to show he's done bad things in the past, therefore he's guilty of murder today. You're offering it to show he deals drugs and he has people that owe him money, so he probably has a motive to kill people that owe him money. That's the motive exception. There's also exceptions for opportunity, meaning if he goes to bars and the murder occurred at a bar, he has the opportunity to commit the murder. That's just introducing it to show his opportunity. You're not introducing it to show that he's a bad person for going to bars or that he's a bad person for dealing drugs at those bars. You're introducing it to show that he has the opportunity to kill people that owe him money because he goes to bars handling guns and handling drugs, and that gives him the perfect opportunity to be the guilty person in this scenario. So be careful about what you're offering evidence for and know what you're offering evidence for, because if you're offering 404B bad acts, it's not necessarily inadmissible, but you have to be able to explain why it is admissible. Why is it okay? What's your other purpose besides action in conformity therewith? That's how character evidence works. You can also always impeach someone. Keep in mind this impeachment thing is an ongoing theme. If someone says something that is like that they're a good person or that they weren't at the bar or that they don't own a gun, then you could introduce their past theft of a gun to show that they're lying and they do own guns. Not to show action in conformity therewith. They're a thief, therefore they're guilty of murder, but to show that they've done the opposite of what they said they do. Therefore, they're a liar. They say they don't go to bars, but they do. They're a liar. They say they don't deal drugs or do drugs, but here on Facebook, they're bragging about using drugs and dealing drugs. They're a liar. So you can always do that to impeach them. But what you have to realize, the difference between 608B and 608A is with 608A, when you're doing general traits, you can introduce extrinsic evidence, meaning you can have other witnesses or other evidence prove that this person is not trustworthy, that you're impeaching. Under 608B, when you're using specific instances of untrustworthy acts, you cannot use extrinsic evidence. That means that if you ask a witness, hey, isn't it true that you posted on Facebook that you like to deal drugs and sell them and beat up people that don't pay for them? If they deny it, you can't introduce their Facebook post to show that they are actually lying. You can't call another witness to show that they're actually lying, because under 608B, you cannot impeach someone with an extrinsic piece of evidence. Now, there is an exception to this if it's a direct contradiction, because then you're in the realm of prior and consistent statements. If they've said something one day and now they're saying the exact opposite today, it would be a prior and consistent statement. But if it's not a direct contradiction, then you're not going to be able to use it as a prior and consistent statement.